Welcome into Giants Training Camp Report presented by Citizens. A Friday afternoon practice here at Quest Diagnostics Training Center as the Giants get ready for their second preseason game at MetLife Stadium when they'll host the Cincinnati Bengals. And as Wink Martindale said earlier this week, on to Cincinnati. I'm Madelyn, Burke, joined by Super Bowl champion Amani, Toomer. It's great to be out here on the practice field, getting closer to this season, getting closer to this second preseason game.
Absolutely, and I know that the players they're gonna have a lot of improvements from the first game to the second game. Usually, there's a difference between knowing what you have to do and then knowing what you have to do once it's tested under fire. So it's good to get an opportunity to watch these guys perform what they've been learning all off season in an actual game.
Brian Daboll talked this morning, too, about the fact that he is actually kind of reconsidering how much to play the starters in this second preseason game. It's important for him and this coaching staff to get these starters reps, but they're dealing with so much injury right now on the offensive line. They've got Max Garcia now, who will be the center. They've gone through, he said, 6 centers so far due to injuries. So that's a little bit of a tough balance to strike, right? When you're dealing with a lot of injury at this time in training camp versus when you want to get these players game reps and valuable experience in pads before the season starts.
I mean, it's a 17-game season now. You don't want to put too much pressure on these guys early. The human body can only take so much of the contact, but you also want things to be crisp. So you're right. It's a balancing act that you really have to, just kind of got to go through, and it's a person-to-person basis. So, but injuries, one thing I know is injuries have killed this team for the last couple years, and you want to see the best possible talent that you got.
As we take a look at Daniel Jones connecting with Wan'dale Robinson, previously through that pass, Daniel Bellinger, a couple of rookies that are pretty interesting to watch at this point in the season and have been really flashing so far in training camp. Who do you have your eye on right now as we head into the second preseason game? Who do you want to see more from?
I definitely want to see more from the rookie. I mean, he's just that type of guy that can be a quarterback's safety net. The fact that you can pass the ball to a guy, he can make some moves and get upfield. Those are the types of things. And also,
you talking about Wan'dale Robinson?
Wan'dale Robinson, yeah, of course. And then, definitely Kenny Galladay. You want to see him, become the type of player that everybody expects him to be, and who he was when he was in Detroit. So those are two guys I'm really looking at. And also, see if Shepard's going to come back healthy. And, there's just a lot of guys out there that I feel need the opportunity to show the coaches that they belong to be here.
Kenny Galladay talked earlier this week, and he said, he hears the things that people say about him. And he said, no matter what anyone says about him, he's so much harder on himself than any outside voice could be. I mean, coming off of last season, obviously he did not perform to the level that he wanted to, that some people expected from him. As a wide receiver, when you sign with a new team and have, expectations and going into a second season, what must that feeling be like for Kenny Galladay?
It's definitely not the same. I mean, when you go to a new offense, it's like going to a new team. And also, this is the second new offense that he's going through in this year's at the Giants. It's just going to, and sometimes it takes a little longer to get at that top level. So, injuries definitely slow those types of things down. I think that, with all the money all the big contract comes big responsibility, and he needs to, show what he can do and show his worth just like everybody else in the NFL every day.
The big motto around the Giants organization is smart, tough, dependable. Brian Daboll talks about that all the time. Earlier today, Giants assistant general manager Brandon Brown stopped and spoke to the media. And he was talking about that a little bit as well. And he said, you got to be able to trust your teammates and depend on your teammates. And if you can't trust that the whole thing is broken. How do you build that? How do you build that smart, tough, dependable culture in a team?
You build it through coaching staff. You build it through repetitions. You build it through the culture around the entire organization. And, from what I hear, I talked to Jesse Armstead earlier today, he's really excited about the culture around here. And that's a good thing to hear because Jesse's been on championship teams and, really good. One of the best Giant linebackers ever and a great friend of mine. And I'm really excited when you hear people that and trust who's this excited about what's going on. It's good because we'll have some competitive football later on the season.
Got to have that competitive football over here. As we've got David Sills in the picture right here wearing 13. And CJ Board moving quick with that catch right there as well. Board has also been very useful, not just in the passing game, but also in special teams. And this is an old adage of if you want to make the 53, you gotta be useful for special teams as well. I mean, that's just, how true is that?
That's so true. I mean, there's only one reason why I got an opportunity to play early in my career was because I used to return punts. And that's the only thing that kept me on the active roster every week, and the only thing that kept me being that third down receiver while I was adjusting from college to pro. So it's so important, and if you can't do that, you better be a starter. And if you're not a starter and you're not on special teams, you're usually not on the squad.
Well, and returning punts, though, is such a different beast than catching a pass.
Yes.
Right? It's coming at you from a different angle, and you've just got a stampede running at you while you're focused on catching this ball. How would you describe the difference? I mean, because it's not like, oh, if you're a receiver and you can catch, you can return it. But it's a very different skill set.
It's a very different, because usually they teach you to catch, even the way you catch the football. Like, if you catch the football, you want you to catch it away from your body, and you want to use your hands. But when you're returning punts, you have to bring it into your body just to secure the punts, because they, especially in the MetLife Stadium, the wind moves the ball around, so you really have to use the technique, and it's completely different. I mean, it's a whole different thing. The hits are much harder. It's you against everybody else, and they're all trying to get you. But it was definitely fun, and kept me, just like I said, kept me active early on.
There are some familiar faces on this roster. There are some new faces. When you're coming in and adjusting to a new offense and a new coaching staff and building in that way, a lot of these guys are some people that were committed or would have been secured on this roster, but under this new coaching staff have to kind of start fresh. How do you approach that from a player's mentality?
Well, you almost got all the goodwill and all the trust that you built with the old coaching staff. You just got to flush it, because you got to develop that same trust and that same dependability that they have in you with the new staff. So it's like it's like a new boyfriend, new girlfriend,
Exactly.
Nothing else happens.
It's like
nothing else matters before.
Out the window. We're starting new, brand new, got to build it up all from the start. One of the things, too, when you look at this offensive line, that the Giants have had so many injuries so far at this point in camp, it's good to have them now, right? It's good to have them now. Couple weeks left still until the regular season starts. Get guys healthy and ready to go. But the offensive line has been a point of emphasis.
Well, the thing about it is, even when you have an offensive line, it's not about the individual players. It's about the entire group and how well they work together. That's why these repetitions that they're missing together, developing that trust is not a good thing. But, it's one of those issues where you can't really get it all in practice. So you kind of have to have it in game, but then you don't want the injuries. So it's a double-edged sword on the approach to actually getting your offensive line better. And sometimes it doesn't have to do with the individual player. Sometimes it has to do with the coaching staff. Sometimes it has to do with the scheme. Sometimes it has to do with the quarterback, how he can change the protections. And it's a very complex issue. And that's why there's a lot of teams in the NFL that don't have offensive lines that they can be proud of.
Well, and Saquon Barkley here in the backfield catching a pass. He's been more involved in the passing game, I think, as well, we've seen in this offense. But, one of the things Saquon talked about yesterday was the emphasis of that north and south running. And he said, I'm kind of sick of hearing people point out, the dancing and the hesitation.
Yeah.
And, for him, I think he was very generous in not pointing fault. But, if you watch tape on him, it's, the second he's got the ball in his hands, he's already trying to elude a defender coming at him.
Yeah.
So a lot of his north and south ability as well comes from that blocking.
I just think I was a punt returner like we talked about before, and everybody used to always tell me how to return punts. And I'd be like, okay, you get back here and do it.
Right.
Like, they got Saquon Barkley for a reason, because of his style. Don't go and try and micromanage a great player. He has great instincts. That's why you drafted him. Don't second guess him. He knows exactly what he's doing. He didn't forget how to run a football. This guy can go. You just got to get him out of his way, give him an opportunity to be great, and stop sitting there trying to make him into everybody else. Everybody else isn't as good as Saquon Barkley. Wow.
As we take a look at a little bit more team drills here, Matt Breida, another guy, Saquon talked a little bit about how just fast this guy is. And he said, I haven't gotten a chance to race him yet, but I kind of want to.
Yeah.
He's fast. He's a sharp running back. He's been fun to watch. And, of course, coming in with the amount of experience that he's got in this league, just such an incredible addition to this running backs room.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few single running back situations in the NFL. Every running back there's an A and a B, and so you got to look back to even the Giants when we had our best running back duos with Tiki and with Bradshaw and all the other really talented running backs. A group is always better than one because you can switch the pace with the defenses, and it's just you need more than one guy. So I would be if I was him, I'd be rooting just for another guy in the backfield that can carry some of the weight.
Right. Well, and also in the course of a season, you got to be mindful of the tread on the tires for everyone. So the more people that you can throw in there, the better. One thing that I thought stood out earlier this week, Brian Dable talking about Tyrod, saying, there are going to be opportunities, and we've seen this so far sometimes in camp where they throw him in with the ones kind of unexpectedly. And he really emphasized this isn't a knock on Daniel Jones. This is also just preparing Tyrod Taylor, because that's what happens when you're the backup quarterback. You don't get prepared to go in. It's, oh no, now it's time, get in there.
Yeah.
And having those reps in practice, in training camp, but also in games, which we may see as well, is really important.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be successful, and if anybody's holding the team back, whether it be the quarterback or anybody else, you got to be able to switch them out. And that's one of the things I don't think they do enough in the NFL. So you got to get your backup really prepared, and you got to get everybody else not prepared for the situation when the quarterback isn't in there if there is an injury. So it's not just for the quarterback, it's for everybody else, because every offense completely changes when a different quarterback gets in, because everybody sees the offense just a little bit different.
Right. And as we see too on the offense line, or 61 out here, Roy Mbedeka, O.C. Manure was in here yesterday.
Yeah.
O.C. found this man in Nigeria. He put on pads for the first time like a month ago.
Oh, wow.
Played not only his very first NFL game, but his very first football game against the New England Patriots. What a unique experience that must be. And if you haven't seen it, Giants.com has a really great all-access mini-series on Roy Mbedeka, number 61 there. But, I mean, that's such a unique perspective to have, right? Not just to be coming into the NFL, but coming into the NFL having never really played football.
Yeah.
And just saying, hey, I have size, I have athleticism, I have talent, like, put me to work, coach.
Yeah, and to be open-minded to accept a new sport and take on a new challenge, moving to not only a different country, but a different continent to, compete against people that have been doing this their entire lives. And I mean, just for him to be out there and competing, it shows a lot about his character. The fact that most people wouldn't take on. They'd say it's too hard. But you gotta look at this situation and just root for him. It's the American dream, coming over here and showing what you can do and using your ability to make the place where you're at better.
Well, and it's got to be kind of intimidating too, right?
Absolutely.
There's only a very small amount of people that ever get to play in the National Football League, and you're like, all right, sign me up. Let me learn this.
You've been training your whole life? No, it doesn't matter.
About like 3 months now? But why not?
How do I buckle this chin strap? How do I buckle this?
Exactly.
Shoulder
Get those
pads off.
Guardian caps going right there. As we see the ones taking the field again. Bobby Johnson in there, the coach in the hoodie, talking to Andrew Thomas, getting the O-line squared away. As we see yesterday, also Daniel Jones really launched it. He had I'm guessing around 50 yards. I didn't see where the pass was thrown from, but it went to the 20 on the other end of the field. And so,
he has the ability.
And he went full send on that pass. And I asked him about it. I was like, hey, that must have felt good for you to air it out, because we haven't really seen a lot of that from Daniel so far in training camp. I said, you know what? Like, as much as the defense is giving us different looks, we need to keep them on their toes as well. We need to, they're expecting these short mid-yard gains, and you know what? Every once in a while, we gotta send it. So
it opens up those short passes by stretching the defense a little bit. But I'm excited to see what Daniel's going to do this year. It's like I said with Saquon. You got a talented player, and you put a little pressure on him. You're either going to see what you got as a good player, or you're going to see what you got as a player you need to move from. So, but I like Daniel as a person. I think he's People really like him around the locker room, and I think it's going to be a good situation for him and the Giants.
Right, absolutely. He's got a lot of the respect of his teammates and his peers. And
that's important for a quarterback, too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
At this point in training camp, you guys are so familiar with each other,
Absolutely.
right? The offense, the defense, you know each other's calls. You know what's coming. So on some level, is that, I mean, we talk about how defense does a little bit better than offense in training camp, but on some level, is that kind of like an unfair advantage?
No, not really. I mean, because you just got to, it makes you be better at what you do. You have to come up with a whole bunch of different moves.
Right.
Because in the game, sometimes maybe you only get one or two moves on a certain guy, but to set them up in different ways. But you have to really beat your teammates, not just physically, but you have to outthink them in terms of what you're going to do. Mix up your different releases or whatnot. So, it's one of those things. And that last play, watching the double move, you can kind of almost tell that really wasn't he really wasn't running the first route that he was trying to do, because he just didn't look natural.
Okay.
And so because he didn't look natural, the defensive back is like, I'm not buying it.
There you go.
That's why that pass just right there wasn't completed. It looked like he was running a double move instead of running the original move and then transitioning to the double move.
I guess it's kind of akin to like the NBA playoffs, right? In a 7-game series, you see so much of each other. You know what is happening, what to expect, but it's just a matter of being able to execute despite the other side knowing exactly what's coming at them.
One thing about football is like there's not that many different things that you can do.
Sure.
So at one point in time, you're going to have to just be able to beat somebody physically and through execution. It's like I remember we played against the Dallas Cowboys. They only had like 3 or 4 different run plays. They knew where they were running the ball, but half of football is you still have to stop it. And that's kind of one of those things that you have to do. And it really makes your game a lot better playing against the same person all the time, because I always talk to the defensive backs, man, hey, so how did you know to break on this? And they would sit there and say, well, you raised up here, you did that, and those are the self-scouts that you really need to do. That's why I really enjoyed training camp, because you got a chance to get better. And we practice twice a day, so you mess up in the morning, you'd be able the opportunity in the evening to correct some of your mistakes.
Absolutely. You gotta know your own tells as well.
Exactly.
It's like, I didn't realize I was giving it away that easily.
Exactly.
That's fair. As we see the offense with the Cards over here in the carded practice today, preparing for this preseason game Saturday against the visiting Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, AFC champion.
Richie James. I can't say that, but I'm Richie James. I feel like this man has been so fun to watch in training camp. Very quick, athletic, coming off of this knee injury. I actually said to Thomas McGahee yesterday, and I said, you know what? I think Richie James needs to make this roster strictly for the ability to say, I'm Richie James. And he goes, we say that all the time.
Yeah, that's great. That's
fun.
great.
It's fun to have a player like that.
And he's talented as well.
On
top of that, double
whammy. But mostly for the meme. Right?
Exactly.
All right, well, that's a wrap for us today here at Giants Training Camp. Thanks for watching Giants Training Camp Report presented by Citizens. For Amani Toomer, I'm Madelyn Burke. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
All right.